Nobody turned on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert that evening expecting to witness history, the kind that doesn't make the front page, but quietly changes how you see the world. Mark Carney, former governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, wasn't exactly late-night TV material. Brilliant, yes. Polished, absolutely. But talk show audiences came for laughs, not lectures about inflation rates or fiscal policy. And yet, there he was, suited up, cool as stone, sitting across from Colbert's trademark smirk. It started civilly enough. Light jokes about Canada's weather, a quip about British tea. The audience chuckled. But Stephen, always eager to poke the bear, leaned in. So Mark, Colbert teased, when you hold the financial fate of millions in your hands, do you ever think about the real people behind those numbers? Or is it all just decimals and policy papers to you? A ripple of laughter passed through the audience. A standard late-night zinger. But Mark didn't laugh. His face hardened, his fingers clasped tighter around his water glass. And in a voice that cut through the studio hum, he said, "Do you?" Silence. Colbert, momentarily caught off guard, attempted to steer the conversation back to humor. But Mark wasn't having it. "You sit here every night," Carney continued, his voice steady but burning, mocking politicians, billionaires, and bankers, and fair enough, we deserve some of it. But when was the last time you left this studio and spoke to a family living in a shelter? Or a child who goes to bed hungry while you crack jokes about economic inequality? The air grew heavy. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Producers frantically signaled for a commercial break. But Mark wasn't finished. Numbers aren't just numbers, Stephen. Behind every statistic is a story. And while the world points fingers and shares hashtags, people are falling through the cracks. Within seconds, a security detail appeared. The show cut to an awkward promo for the musical guest. Mark Carney was escorted off stage. The incident trended for days, hashtag Carney Confrontation, hashtag Late Show Blowup. Opinion pieces flooded the web. Some called it grandstanding, others labeled it brave. But the part no one reported was what happened next. That night, as the New York streets pulsed with neon and gossip, Mark Carney walked alone. No entourage. No car waiting. He wandered through the Lower East Side, lost in thought, replaying every word he'd said. At a quiet corner, he spotted a young man sitting by a closed deli, head bowed, shoulders trembling. His name was Luis, 24, recently evicted, clutching a photograph of his little sister back in Texas. Mark approached cautiously, offering a coffee he'd just picked up. "No cameras," he said softly, sitting beside him. "Just someone who's had a long night too." They talked. About life's unfairness. About how you can rise to the top of one world and feel completely invisible in another. About how the systems people like Mark had built often forgot people like Luis. Luis shared how he'd been working 2 jobs before a medical bill sent his life spiraling. How he missed his sister's quinceañera. How nobody, not even passersby, looked him in the eye anymore. And then, without fanfare, Mark did something no one expected from a man known for billion-dollar decisions and central bank speeches. He took off his coat, wrapped it around Luis's shoulders, and made a call. Within an hour, Luis had a room in a shelter, not just any shelter, but one Mark quietly funded through an anonymous foundation. The same foundation that, each winter, covered rent for families teetering on the edge, sent kids to school with full stomachs, and paid for hospice care when no one else would. Because what few people knew was that beneath the tailored suits and titles, Mark Carney never forgot where he came from, the son of a teacher and a school principal, raised on stories of resilience. Who watched his neighbor's house foreclosed when he was a teenager and promised himself he'd spend his life trying to fix a broken world. The next evening, Stephen Colbert opened his show differently. He didn't joke. He didn't dodge. He spoke, candidly and humbly, about the confrontation. How he'd gotten so caught up in satire that he'd started treating real issues like punchlines. How sometimes it takes getting called out to remember why you picked up a microphone in the first place. He ended with a quote, sent anonymously to his office that afternoon. "Compassion isn't a policy. It's a choice we make in the small, unseen moments." The audience stood in ovation, not for a gag, but for a truth. And across the city, a young man named Luis slept safely, a picture of his sister tucked under his pillow, wearing a coat that once belonged to a central banker. Because sometimes, the real revolutions don't happen under bright studio lights. They happen on cold sidewalks, with 2 strangers, a cup of coffee, and a decision to care.